I know that I'm just, the US has not yet defined its role in these guarantees that Europeans are talking about. But could you imagine, Paul, if there will be not the American volunteers that we have few thousands here in Ukraine in international battalions or ZSU, but I mean, if they will be officially presented, could you imagine there will be a game changer? The war will stop in a minute.
Yeah, I mean, I think it wouldn't even take American boots on the ground. Again, I think the most telling event was, to me, when Israel launched strikes against the Iranian government, right, in Iran and in Tehran. And remember, the Iranian air defenses were purchased and engineered by Russia. This was a core part of their cooperation. Russian military went into Iran and helped them set up and organize their air defenses, and essentially sold to the Iranians, hey, our air defenses beat this NATO-trained, NATO-equipped Ukrainian military. And the Israelis that were armed, again, with F-35s and the true top-of-the-line U.S. systems just cut through the Iranian air defenses. Absolutely offered no resistance. Israel lost 0 aircraft. So to me, American troops on the ground would almost be unnecessary, given the fact that just offering complete air dominance, the ability to strike, even if the U.S. was to say we won't strike in Russian sovereign territory, only in occupied Ukraine, you're still talking about just complete helplessness by the Russian military in the face of it. It's really, again, the evidence was clear that there is still, air power can still be extremely decisive when you have technology that can beat air defenses.
Yeah, that's a very good point. But, Paul, some say Ukraine is stuck in a bad deal after signing a minerals agreement with the US while, getting little new military aid. So do you agree that it's kind of an unfair exchange?
For sure. Sitting down, forcing Ukraine or coercing Ukraine into this sort of minerals agreement that the U.S. billed as being, Scott Bessent went out and said it was just as good as a security guarantee. But I think the actual text of the agreement, it really leaves a lot that still needs to be hammered out. There's a lot of the text that says, oh, this aspect or that aspect will be determined later. And in the U.S., the president, major agreements and treaties still have to be ratified by Congress. And, as I believe has been the case still in Ukraine. So I'm skeptical that these kind of agreements can't be walked back. Yes, it is a bad deal. Do I think the deal will be executed over the next 10 years? Probably not. It's pretty unlikely.
Mm-hmm, I see. Paul, I was watching your videos that were published a year ago, and you were surfing and scrolling Russian soldiers' comments, and they were writing that Ukrainian drones in the forest on the front line were like mosquitoes in the forest. Yeah, that was a precise quote. From your perspective, has Russia, we're just going back to the beginning, but still, has Russia now managed to close that gap?
It seems like Russia definitely has. They've definitely learned the lessons, but I think there's a fundamental conundrum that Russia faces that Ukraine doesn't, which is that Russia's strategy is being on the offense. And ultimately, Russian troops have to come out of prepared positions. They have to advance. They have to cross fields. They have to cross roads. And that presents opportunities, additional opportunities for strikes that Ukraine doesn't have. Now, obviously, Russia seems to be able to produce more drones. It seems to be able to produce drones at least at parity with what Ukraine can produce. But ultimately, Ukrainian soldiers still can exploit the fact that Russian soldiers have to advance in ways that Ukraine doesn't. And again, both sides are absolutely trying to tear each other's logistics and resupply routes, absolutely trying to tear them apart with these drones. But again, it's much harder for Russia because they have to advance into a new position and then build a logistics line to support that position, all of which explains a large part of the difference in casualties that are reported between Ukraine and Russia.
Yeah, you're absolutely right, because it's kind of a nightmare. Ukrainians cannot even harvest because Russian drones just killing Ukrainian farmers while they're just working. People I know from my friends, they cannot go to the funerals because Russian drones in Kherson region, they're just attacking, following them at the funerals. So it's disaster.
Yeah, the Russia, it just feels like Russia really is increasingly just dropping their mask and saying, hey, we don't think the international community is going to make us face any consequences for war crimes. So there's just no reason for us not to just commit, it just brazenly attack civilians, attack funerals, and just really not even pretend like they think there's going to be consequences.
And the last question comes to my mind. If Donald Trump so respects only a strength from dictators he admires, but not the leaders who try to flatter him, he always thinks those who's flattering him, they are losing. They are losers and they are losing anyway. So does that mean that the world leaders, European leaders, have to be tougher with Trump?
I think it's less about, I think there's a lot of truth to that. Trump we've never seen him pick a hard fight and win. So I guess sometimes like some of his legal issues, but beyond that, we've never seen him really go toe to toe and again, face down really almost any institution here in the United States, right? He's gotten universities, companies, almost every institution here in the U.S. that claims to have some kind of values or ethic. And he simply demanded things of them or demanded they stop engaging in certain behaviors. And they've simply kind of rolled over. And the few people that have actually pushed back on him, he's actually caved fairly quickly. And so I think the European leaders, it's not so much that they need to be tough to respect him. It's that at some point they're going to realize that getting a deal with him through flattery that is so ephemeral. He changes his mind all the time, right? He's announced no less than 3 final trade deals with China, none of which have actually come to be executed. So I think at some point, everyone, European leaders, India, every country that deals with them is going to have to say, listen, there's no good deal to be made. There's no permanent deal to be made. The only strategy is going to be to simply ignore him, separate yourself from him as much as possible. And that's bad for the United States, to be clear. But at some point you have to sit there and look and say, listen, there's no reliable deal to be made. It's like a deal with Putin at some point, right? He's behaving exactly like the people he admires. And ultimately, Putin views deals as just opportunities to exploit someone further.
Yeah, but from Ukrainian perspective, when you need support from the United States, you have to find some approach to the American president, and nothing works with him. As you saying, flattering will not lead you anywhere because he's going to change his mind. And for the president with such a huge ego, you may think that flattering and respect, it's the way to get through and to build a serious, relationship with the United States, with his country. And that's not true. Obviously.
You can't build a relationship with someone who doesn't have persistent beliefs or persistent policies over time. You simply can't do it, right? Because you don't know what they want to hear at any given moment. It just, there's not, it's like me trying to reach some kind of détente with my toddler. One day she wants to read a book, 30 seconds later she wants a snack. There's no way for us to have, she has no fixed policy or beliefs or desires. And so you can't negotiate with her. You just sort of have to manage.
But she's
right?
a kid. She's a kid.
She is a kid, yeah. And, you know, if you read the president's Twitter account, he also has some very toddler tantrum-like characteristics.
He's also probably not older than 14 years old.
No.
Teenager. Yeah, you're right. Thank you, Paul, for your time. It's always a pleasure to talk with you, to hear your opinion, and I hope to see you again in our studio.
Yeah, likewise. Thanks again.
Thank you.